Something huge is brewing for the Toronto Maple Leafs as a new report from Elliotte Friedman has come out and revealed some very interesting details surrounding a contract between the Leafs and Matthew Knies. We're going to break down the report and discuss what it entails, as it is very encouraging if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. Stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we get into it, quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. If you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, about 72% of you who are watching are not subscribed. Make sure to hit that button as we're on the road to 13,000 subscribers, and we're very, very close. But Darius, a very interesting report drop from Matthew Knies, and we're now getting very close to opening night against Montreal Canadiens very, very soon. And before that happens, before the season starts, obviously Matthew Knies is going to be a big part of this upcoming year, and he is going to be needing a contract very, very soon. And Elliotte Friedman came out and revealed some very interesting details. And let's just get right into it. So you can see a couple of different things. He basically goes on by saying, I'm wondering if the Leafs are trying to sign him. And he also came out, we'll just start with the quote here now from Elliotte Friedman. And he said, yes, that did catch my eye. And I'm wondering if they're going to sign him, Friedman said. I think Matthew Knies is on the precipice of being a really good long-term important piece of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's heading into the last year of his entry-level contract, and I think there have been some conversations about it. I don't know how much or in depth they have really talked about it, but there have been some rumors and there have been some conversations. And the big striking point to this is kind of the first sentence there, or the second sentence. He thinks basically that they're going to try to sign him and that a signing is most likely going to happen. And this makes a ton of sense if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan and if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, specifically their front office. He had a phenomenal playoffs last year, and he's only going to get better. And if he has a good year this year, putting up, say, 50 or 60 points, you can see the continuous increase in playing time and just being good. He's setting himself up for a pretty big contract here.
Yeah, not just last year was he really good in the playoffs. The year before that, too, he made a pretty big statement, I think, like, I have arrived, right? And I am Matthew Knies. But, he's a great player that I think the Leafs need, and they need to lock up long term, right? We've talked a lot, like we talked in a couple of videos about maybe a bridge, and I've seen it on Twitter. I don't think that's the route that the Leafs should go here. Sign him long term, make sure you have him, and obviously that dollar amount will look better as the years go on. He's a very important piece to the Leafs lineup. He can play almost anywhere. We've seen that he can kind of go up and down the lineup because, again, he's not a scorer like Austin Matthews or anything like that. But the way he plays is important to the Leafs. We saw it in the series against Boston. I still believe the only reason besides Joseph Woll that went to a game 7 is because of the moment in game 5 where Matthew Knies started shoving Pasternak and asking him what he was prepared to do about it, which was nothing. And he let him know that. So I feel like he's a big part of the Leafs team in that way. Obviously, physicality. He's even bigger this year. And we're seeing how hard he is on the puck and the way he plays. We know he's a valuable asset. The Leafs need to sign him long-term, get this done. We also have some, maybe some insider people are giving their thoughts on what the contract may look like. We'll get to that later in the video, but yeah, they need to sign this guy. He's already a fan favorite, and I love the way he plays and what he brings to the team, especially in the playoffs. They need more of that, and they need the top guys to play a little bit more like that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different things. Like, obviously, Matthew Knies is at this point projected and penciled in to be that first line left winger to pair with Austin Matthews. He's going to be a guy that's going to get better, like you mentioned. He's been increasing. He's been getting better for the past couple of seasons. You see this here during the Monday's episode of 32 Thoughts. Kyle basically noted that Knies' unexpected leadership role in Saturday's preseason game was impressive, and that sparked a conversation about his future. And the fact that he was wearing the assistant captain on Saturday night, did it catch your eye? And of course, Friedman came out and said yes, and they're looking and working on an extension. And that's something that we haven't really discussed too much because of everything else that's been going on, whether it's the Nick Robertson thing, the Mitch Marner thing, all of those. But I want to get your quick thoughts on the fact, and we didn't discuss it at the time or in the video, Knies was given the alternate captaincy in the preseason, and it seems that maybe shows that the Leafs see him, especially Craig Berube and all these guys, as a leader going forward for this team. And that was shown in the playoffs when he fought, when he stepped up and stepped up for everybody on the Maple Leafs, was really the leader on that team, of course, alongside Austin Matthews and those guys. But for being one of the younger players in the team, he's shown nothing but good things, and he's being rewarded here in the preseason. He's definitely going to be rewarded next year by playing alongside Austin Matthews once again.
Yeah, so he was given the A the other night, which Elliotte Friedman brought up, and a lot of people were making it out to be, they got to give the A to somebody in these games because not many of the NHL guys are playing. And I don't think that's the case. The Leafs went without a captain for many years in between Sundin and Phaneuf, and then from Phaneuf to Tavares too. Like, they didn't have to do anything if they didn't want to, and obviously they gave him the assistant captaincy in these games. So clearly he means a lot to the organization behind the scenes, and they see something in him that he can be very effective long term. And, it's a good thing for him too. Get him a little taste of, wearing a letter or what that responsibility comes with in game situations, right? So I like that from the Leafs. I thought, again, I don't think that they had to do anything that they didn't want to. So clearly they gave it to him for a reason. And Obviously he's earned his spot in this lineup as well, and just everything he's been doing in the preseason. Obviously, he's not, anything flashy or scoring too many goals, but I just love the way he plays, what he brings to the table. And there have been some rumors on Twitter and around about the Leafs, wanting to get something done before the season with not only him but Mitch Marner at this point too, which is a separate conversation and a separate video, but wanting to get it done before the season starts because players like to just focus on the season, and there is potential for him to have a much better season this year than last year. Obviously, he's continuing to grow and get that much better, and that will raise the dollar amount. So, there is incentive for the Leafs to try and get this done, pretty soon here, just before the season starts. And I think they're going to try to, but again, it is just rumblings and it might not happen. Maybe they'll wait till next offseason. But I do think that the play here is to sign him long term.
Yeah, and if you're the Maple Leafs, you probably want to get Matthew Knies signed before this season now. Whether Matthew Knies will do that or not is up in the air. He is coming off of not a down year, a very good year, but if he thinks he can go out and, like I mentioned, put up 50 points, 60 points, he's going to get himself a much bigger payday. But there is a world where the Leafs can kind of factor that in and get somewhere in the middle. And you can see this here. Like Wall, it looks like the Leafs are trying to sign Knies before his big breakout. We obviously know that Joseph Wall signed that 3-year deal earlier on in the offseason. And it'd be nice to get on him for an absolute steal of a contract. I've compared them statistically before, but Alex Puke's 7-year, $4.75 million would be incredible value if they can get Knies on a similar deal. So there's some rumblings of a deal similar to that. Now, that would lock him up again for the foreseeable future. And I think this would be kind of a in the middle contract. It's not super expensive, but it's also you're paying, if he ends up for whatever reason falling off a little bit or even sticking at 35 points per game, it might be a little bit tough to swallow. But that being said, you'll only be taking a $4.75 million cap hit, which is still a hefty amount, but it's nothing crazy for a young and up-and-coming, I guess, prospect, not really prospect anymore, a young and up-and-coming player at this point. But 7 years, $4.75 million, I don't hate it, though I'm more on the fence of maybe let him play out this year, see how he does, see that there is significant improvement like there's been the past couple years before you lock him up to any 7-year deal. Even though it might cost you a little bit more in the long run, it might be a little bit safer for the Leafs.
Yeah, probably a little bit safer in that way, because if he doesn't take a step, then maybe, because it's been rumored maybe 5 or 6 million, right? So if you're giving 5 or 6 million, even though the salary cap is going up significantly over the next couple of years and it won't hurt as much, it might hurt if he is hovering around 35 points still a season, right? That's not a very good investment at that point if that happens. But he is continuing to take steps and get better. Obviously, last year was pretty good. At times, he did look a step behind, I think, at least in my eyes, playing on that first line. But I think he's only going to get that much better. A lot of us forget that he's only going to be 22. Like, it feels like he's been around for a while already. He's still very young and taking steps. So maybe there is incentive to wait, right? But there is incentive on either end too, I think, if they were to sign him before the season. Because if he goes off and has an amazing season and he gets 60 points and it looks like he can be, this crazy almost point a game player, which I don't know if that's exactly his ceiling, but if something like that does happen, there might be incentive to sign him before the season. But at this point in time, it may look like they're waiting till next offseason, just see how this season goes. And he's going to get around the same number either way, I think, at this point. I don't know if it's going to be as low as Tuck because of the salary cap rising. I'm sure a lot of these agents are probably asking for more money, but I would think, somewhere in the $5 million to $6 million range, and that'll be fine as the salary cap goes up. And that's probably what players with his output will make going forward.
Yeah, and it's an interesting conversation. And one quick thing before we do wrap up, a couple of other points. But again, Friedman, it seems like something is definitely on the horizon. And Matthew Knies did speak out himself on it. He said, I don't really want to get into that. I want to stay here. I know a lot of guys want to stay here. It's a pretty awesome place to play. And I think I'm going to leave that out of my hands and just work on getting better and contributing. And this was obviously back a couple weeks ago now when he said this. So this kind of lines up with Elliotte Friedman's quote. And for a guy who's put up 35 points last year in 80 games, hopefully he can improve. He's about to be 22 when the season starts. And it's going to be a very interesting conversation to keep an eye on as the season is approaching, also as it gets underway. And let us know, do you think this would be a good deal for the Toronto Maple Leafs at 7 years at $4.75 million? Or do you think they should wait a little bit? Let us know. Thank you guys for watching.